Big ideas and voices clear. CXXP X2, bringing the best straight to you. X-Engage, turn the page, ignite the stage. Learn, grow, feel the spark, make every moment leave a mark.
Hi, I'm Debi Potgieter, a certified customer experience professional with over 30 years of experience in all things CX. Welcome to the X-Engage podcast, where we bring you insights from industry C experts, exploring actionable strategies to elevate customer experience and drive real business impact. Whether you're a CX leader, practitioner, professional, or just passionate about customer experience, this podcast is for you. Let's dive in.
Hello, welcome to X-Engage podcast. I'm Debi Potgieter, your host, and today we have a very, very special guest, a young gentleman that I worked with many years ago in around 2013, and someone who's left a lasting impression on me and many, many others at the organization we worked with at that time. With me today is Siphiwe Moyo. He is a renowned speaker, a well-known international and accredited speaker, and he talks everything people and more. And when we talk about customer experience, people is what we do. Siphiwe, it's our business, whether it's customers or whether it's our stakeholder, whether it's our employees, whether it's our colleagues, friends, we're in the people business. And so we couldn't help the opportunity of getting you onto our podcast. And we are so grateful that you have joined us here today. Welcome.
Thank you, Debi. It's so good to see you. It's so good to be here. Thank you.
Siphiwe, tell us a little bit about you and your journey, because you've got such a special story and your achievements are far and wide. And I could go through a list of them now, but I think then our podcast time will be over and we wouldn't have got to the meat that we wanted to get to achieve today. So tell us a little bit about your story and your journey and what you've achieved.
Thank you, Debi. I never know where to start, but I'm born in Soweto, the most famous township in the world, apparently, and grew up both in Soweto and a place called Orange Farm here in South Africa. I'm an HR person. I think when we met, I was in an HR team, learning and development team in particular within the HR structure. And I've since become a lecturer, so I teach part-time a subject called organizational behaviour, which is just this fascinating around why do people do the things that they do. Human behaviour within the workplace is really always fascinating because I think human beings are interesting because we are dynamic, we are different. It's not like working with a certain formula. So I loved teaching that subject, and I speak at conferences around the world. So generally that is my journey. I speak on things on leadership and as you say, the people business. So you let me know what you want me to cover.
Well, as you can hear, talking around the world, the impact that you make and the people that you touch and the difference that you set apart, is that what drives you?
Yeah, that's exactly what drives me. I think, one of my biggest passion is that work doesn't have to suck. Work doesn't have to be a drag. I think many people have a very difficult relationship with work currently. It's almost like this thing that you must endure so that you will enjoy the weekend. And I just think enjoying 5 days so that you have a bit of a respite during the weekend is not what work should be. So I'm really passionate about creating better workplaces where passion can be given an opportunity to emerge and flourish. So that really drives me. And one of the reasons it drives me so hard is that, in fact, when we met, I had a great time in that particular division of the bank, but I had come out of another division where I didn't flourish and I wasn't doing so well. And it always fascinates me how one person can languish in one department and flourish in another. And that's where you see that people, not everyone is lazy. Sometimes people are mismatched. And if you can find a spark in that particular person, find what drives them, then you unleash them into the world. So that really drives me.
That talks to my heart. And, you know, particularly in the work that I had done, we worked in the toughest department to ask people for money that they didn't have during a global financial crisis where their homes were at stake. We were not just, you know, taking away a car, which is just as bad. You know, we were looking at the risk of losing homes. And it was hard work for the team to come up and show up every day and ask the same questions over and again. When can you pay money? We know you don't have it, but we need to have the money. And we tried to turn that on its head and say, how about we try and keep people in their homes and work with them? And our teams were so connected by that message because they wanted to feel a sense of purpose and a sense of do good so that we can go back home and say, you know what, we had a tough day at the office, but we helped 4 people keep their homes today. That is special because those are families and units that you are leaving, you know, behind, the difference that you make. And so I would love to hear your biggest love story around where employees, people find that match where they've been able to connect to their employees' purpose and the values, even though it's a difficult job, and they change their mindset. They make the choice, but the environment also has to be conducive to it.
I think you've just given the best example ever. If you think about people who must go to work and ask people for money, and you manage to reframe that to say, let's keep people in homes. That is like literally the best example ever, because every single human being wants to know that because I went to work, someone else's life is better. And to have had that foresight so many years ago, when these kinds of ideas actually were not as acceptable as they are now. I mean, right now they are quite acceptable. If I think about, there's a beautiful study done by Adam Grant and colleagues also on a team of call center agents that were supposed to call the alumnus and ask them to donate to the university that they used to go to, and they were struggling with the same thing. People were struggling to raise money, and they did almost something similar. So half of the group, they allowed them to meet the beneficiaries of their scholarships. They said, have a bit of coffee with someone who is benefiting from that scholarship. Then literally the next week, people made 50% more calls. They managed to raise more money. So these ideas of purpose and connection and meaning, many people think those are the things that are soft, but they are not. If you manage to make that connection, people will always give you that discretionary effort. So I'm going to use that example everywhere. Developed and designed by Debi Potgieter.
It was a joint effort by so many people, and I know that it was tough times. We were in trouble most of the time, but we used to get up and dance in the middle of the day. We used to do strange things because we felt that together as a team, we could do so much more and we would have such a bigger impact. Yeah. And today I want to talk about winning on your own versus winning as a team.
Yes.
And you've got some experience in this, of course. Yes. You're only as good as the best person in your team. Yes. And there is a controversy to this I want us to chat about and then maybe spin into the winning mindset and the winning team. As leaders, practically, we find ourselves working with our colleagues that are struggling, that maybe don't fit within the organization that well, that may raise grievances, necessary or unnecessary, that may not perform as well. We spend an insurmountable amount of time with those staff. And do we then as leaders bring our bar down by spending all that time with the staff? If we had to turn the script and spend as much energy or even more on the staff that do connect with our values, that do see the purpose, that are performing, that are driving, won't we lift our benchmark and won't we see a better performance where people will start joining?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting concept, because generally speaking, we know that people who are stars love being surrounded by other stars. There is something inspirational about an environment where everyone is a performer. In fact, when leaders spend an inordinate amount of time with people who are really, really struggling, the stars feel neglected. They feel like, oh, is the way to get your attention to be spending time with people who are not performing. So I totally agree with you. I think we do need to spend time with those people who are already performing and try to give them space for them to flourish. And I think what happens with leadership sometimes is that because we don't have enough time, one of the tricks in our brains is that this people stuff interferes with my business. This is what I do on a day-to-day. I do credit, I do sales, and this people stuff interferes with my business. But the reframe there that is very important is just reminding yourself that at a leadership level, your people are your business. The coaching, the mentoring, the spending time, the check-ins, those things are not interrupting your work. They are your work. And if you can get that right in your mind, then you will be able to spend a little bit of time with someone who's already performing and just ask them 2 questions or 3 questions on how you can help them become even better. But because we think of it as a disturbance, we end up spending an inordinate amount of time with people who are not performing. But it's mainly a mindset issue to say, this is now my job.
That is so true. So if you're a people manager and you're not a specialist, then people is your job.
Yes.
And you work with both those who need help and those who need to be inspired to do greater and better things.
Absolutely.
So when we're all looking out for ourselves, because let's face it, in corporate, we've got some politics at play. Yeah. How do you change that mindset where if you're all focused on doing something you think is important in a direction that's not working together as a team, how do you get that to change, and what are the benefits? What would you tell people around coming together and building a cohesion and a North Star that you're going to tackle together?
Yeah, I think it's so important, and I think you've nailed it. It's about that North Star. It's about working so hard to find a common purpose. Until we have some kind of a common purpose that we work towards, this idea of breaking silos, collaboration, it will never work. We have to find a way to find that North Star and find a common purpose. I love studies because they give us a little bit of a real situation. There's been interesting studies on the effect of collaboration on performance, because we don't collaborate for its own sake. We want performance. And one of my favorite one is done by a guy called Robert Cialdini, and he does it in various ways. But there's one where they do it with some estate agents. So they go to 2 different estate agents and they say to them, on the first group, when you get a call, someone wants to list their house with us, just say, hold on, I'm going to put you through to Peter. That's it. And then put them through. On the second group, they say, please add a small statement. You must say, I'm going to put you through to Peter, who has sold more houses in that area than any other agent. And let's see whether there's effect on performance. It turns out that little statement that takes less than 6 seconds added about 35% more listings for that particular estate agent. So there's an impact of collaboration, working well together on performance, on our joint performance. So if you can find a way to have that common purpose, even have some key KPIs that we share together as a team, it unites us to work for something. I think leaving that to chance never works, because you have to design for it. You have to make sure that there is something that joins people. Of course, you can think that, for example, you just want people to not be self-centered, but that's not how life works. We're living in times at the moment where people think being self-centered is the only way to do work, but it does not work. And by the way, being others-centered also helps us with more fulfillment than any self-centeredness can give us. Many people think that, by taking and taking and taking, you gain more. But there's so much evidence that tells us that if you want fulfillment, you have to help others. There is no greater joy than seeing someone, for example, who was in your team 20 years from now, doing better, flourishing. I know, for example, when you see me on stages and everywhere, there is no greater joy. And I think many people will rob ourselves of an incredible amount of joy and fulfillment if we're only if we're only self-centered. But as a team, we must design for it, and then we must then focus on these behaviors that can help us do better.
What I connect with you is the other-centered. I love that, other-centered.
Yes.
So it's a shift from self-centered to other-centered, where there's more fulfilling. I personally rather give than receive, because when I do receive, I'm like, let's give more.
Yes.
And I do believe that's how kindness is the forefront of kindness, is to be selfless and help someone else. I also see so much connection when you talk about the teams winning together for a joint purpose, because when employees are engaged and they are committed in the organization, you see something wonderful happen. The customer benefits.
Yes.
And you gave it in your example there of just collecting money. People were willing to come to the party and say, yes, I want to, donate, or I want to be part of, I'm going to be speaking to the best estate agent. Like, I want the best, and I want to feel all of these good things. So the impact that it has on customers is unbelievable. So we have a little saying in the CX world that happy employees, happy customers, happy shareholders, because the money is probably going to be in the bank for you at that time. And if you can't get those three things designed, because nothing happens by accident.
Exactly.
Only if you want to kill fires and trauma counseling and things like that, that happens by accident. But well-designed employee experiences, well-designed employee engagement programs, well-designed customer journeys, businesses thrive through these connections coming together.
Yes.
Often it's the CEO that has to stand up and talk to its board members or their shareholders. And we think that's the grand job. But Siphiwe, you and I both know that the grand job is those frontline staff sitting in a branch or sitting in a retail store or phoning on a call center or receiving calls or out there trying to sell the goods. That's the frontline staff that really carry that brand on them. And they have a huge responsibility. As much as they can fulfill that brand, they can bring that brand down too. Do you have any stories of where you've seen things not work out well and that you would recommend it's not best practice to do something in this way? And then I would like you to flip the script and say that it is best practice to do something differently.
Yeah, Debbie, I think I can't believe that there are still people who even want to argue whether an employee that is not happy can treat a customer well. It is impossible. I can do the bare minimum I can just do whatever I can, but I will never be able to give you a happy customer if I'm not happy as an employee. And one of my favorite stories is, and I mean, this client has given me permission to talk about this, so I can even mention it. One of our clients that I've been doing some interesting roadshows with is a big client that is recognizable in South Africa, a company called PEP. When you go to a PEP, it's a discount clothing retailer. One of their purpose is to make sure that each and every person, irrespective of their budget, can feel and look good. That purpose, every employee at PEP knows it. Every employee at PEP connects to that purpose in ways that you cannot imagine. But that was designed as well. They tell a story often of how in 1998, PEP had a really good journey, but in 1998, they were very close to being bankrupt. It was really, really bad. The incoming CEO spent a bit of time. They got them externally. They were not even a retailer. Spent a bit of time in the first few months trying to learn the culture, and then came back to the board and the excos and say, we're going to turn around this business by changing culture. And everybody says, what are you going to do? Says, our culture is terrible. Give me a chance. Let me cook, as young people say. I'll show you the difference. And then changes a few things, drops ties. Not that there's anything wrong with tie, but they were trying to bridge the gap between the frontline employees and the teams, starting using first name basis. And then they start very interesting rituals, like they high five each other all the time now. And there's something that happens if you have to high five a person every day you meet them. There's something, you break barriers and so on. They change cultures, they introduce songs, rituals, singing. There's a beautiful, what we call Gies in South Africa spirit in every PEP store now. You look at immediately after that, the business stabilizes. And if you think about it now, it is outperforming a lot of their clients. And only because they said we have to change culture, they introduced things like you have to treat our employees with dignity and respect. And all of a sudden, you have masses of people across the business who are extremely happy to tell the client about our stories, to tell the client about our clothes, and you can't instruct that. You can only inspire it.
And I'm going to stop you right there. Not only am I inspired, but I think many, many leaders and organizations get that wrong around instruct versus inspire. You are one of the most, if not the most inspirational speaker that I know.
Thank you, Debbie.
And if there was something that you would inspire South African workers, whether they are students who are trying to get through their courses or graduates trying to find work or those lucky enough to have work, what would you tell them would be your best message that you would leave with them to say, go forth and be?
That's interesting for me, but I think I'll tell you things that work for me. Two main things. One of them is a reframe that changed my life. That's simple words. Moving from a mindset that says, I have to do something, to one that says, I get to do something. It's an interesting thing. I was starting to feel very grumpy in the last few years, and I didn't know what was going on. And psychologists often talk about the term called hedonic adaptation, where we adapt to the good things in our lives and we no longer see them. So here I was doing far better than I've ever been in my life, but I was grumpier and more whiny than I've ever been as well. And these little gratitude exercises where you just have to change your message and say, I get to do great work. I get to stand in front of people and deliver great talks. I get to spend so much time with people that I love. I get to. Reminds you that you might not be where you were, but you might not be where you want to be, but you definitely are better than where you were before. And that for me has worked wonders. Just that gratitude journal is very important. The second one is agency. The idea that no one is coming to my rescue. No one is coming to do it for me. And agency is such a powerful thing because it overcomes this big psychological barrier called learned helplessness. Many of us, we get to a point where we look at the state of the country, we look at how our organizations are, we look at how bad things are, and then we feel like we are trapped. We feel helpless. And once you overcome that by saying, I have agency, I will create the career that I want, I will do what I want to do, it empowers you, and you go out there and do it. So I think those two mindset shifts are the big thing for me.
As I sit here now, I want to reframe some things. I get to sit in this wonderful studio interviewing the very best out of the, in the world, talking about people. And that is something I'm very grateful for. And so you speak about a gratitude journal. Is that something that you do every day? Is it becomes a daily habit? Is it, is it about the frequency, or is it about the intention or the quality of it that helps you change that mind shift from I have to versus I get to?
No, so I tried doing it daily, and there's some evidence to suggest that doing it daily removes efficacy of the gratitude journal because it becomes another thing that you must do. In fact, doing it periodically, so I do it weekly now. So I have a Saturday ritual where I have a gratitude journal. And it helps me because I have a few days to reflect on. One of the things that makes gratitude journal lose their efficacy is when it's now something that becomes a chore. And for people who are generally wired like that, that's fine. But there is substantial evidence to suggest that whether doing that maybe weekly or even bi-weekly can be a little bit helpful. I tried doing it daily, but it's just becoming a chore, something I have to do. And I was starting to say the same things, and I could tell that it no longer has that effect on me. So spreading it out is very helpful.
So it must work for you. It must feel right. Yeah. But the mind shift is, I get to do something. I love that. Incredible. The other one was agency. I'm not a victim. I have the agency and the mandate to take control of a situation. Absolutely. Or find a way how I'm going to choose to take control. Those are massively, massively important. Sure. Siphiwe, you also have had conversations with many leaders all over the world, executives and board members and CEOs and probably presidential outfits and the works. And you get to share some knowledge of what great people leaders should do and what they shouldn't do. Do you have any insights that you want to share with us? And you can even tell some of those stories we won't say.
It's such an interesting one, Debi. If I think about many, many stories of what we tell leaders to do and not to do, and what the pushbacks that we get from leaders about some of the things that I speak about around human-centered leadership, I love the pushbacks because for me, where I've landed on is that we have to avoid extremes in the way we lead. And I got this from one of the leaders who spoke to me and said, I was speaking about human-centered leadership. And he says, Siphiwe, I was one of the most human-centered leaders you can ever find. I was empathetic. I was people-orientated. If you told me my son is not well, I don't even want evidence. I'll just let you do whatever you need to do. But at some point, I felt like it was being undermined. It was taken for granted. And at some point, I still need to account for performance. So unfortunately, I've swung the pendulum to the other extreme where I now no longer care. And you can tell it was now a protective measure that this person is scarred, is wounded by how people take advantage of such. And then on the other extreme, you still have leaders who are unable to hold someone accountable, who are unable to have a performance conversation and say, you have not done well. Where I've landed with this is that I advocate for leading with both care and candor. And that is where I've landed because of this, that the idea that care and honesty and candor are mutually exclusive is not working for us. You must have high care environments where you care about the person, but you must still be able to challenge them. The idea that you can challenge and support is the most sustainable one, because organizations that have tried to create the so-called psychological safety, where people feel safe to ask a question, to differ, to admit a mistake, they've been, unfortunately, clapped. There's an Afrikaans word called clapped. If you're an international viewer, Google it. They've been, unfortunately, felt that people undermined that and they moved the other way. Now we want both psychological safety and accountability. Without the other, you cannot sustain anything else. You want people who are accountable in the team. And unfortunately, what then happens in the team is that when you are a leader and you have two employees, the other one is show initiative, they're accountable, and the other one, unfortunately, doesn't come to the party. We end up doing this blanket statement that we've cancelled working from home for everybody. And now this person who had always shown initiative, was always self-motivated, was always performing, unfortunately is now being affected by the fact that you were not willing to have a conversation with both care and candor with one person. So I think that's where I've landed with that idea.
And I think it's a good place to land. We had an X-Talk through the CXSA just yesterday, and I know this is going to be aired later, but in that conversation, we spoke about customers aren't equal. And we can't treat all customers the same. So why would we ever think that our employees or people are the same? And so that you have to look at treating those differently and finding different styles.
That's so good.
So I know you're also in behavioral organization, and there are different types of leadership, one of which I strongly connect with is servant leadership. Is being able to work in the trenches with my team, but know when they need to be led and know when they need to follow and know where they need to have me side by side with them. How do you see servant leadership in an economy like we have in South Africa, where it is highly competitive? Not all infrastructure things work as they should work. There are serious challenges that our people face. How do you see that show up in corporate South Africa today?
Yeah, I'm actually very curious about how you've come to love servant leadership. And I'll tell you why. Because so I'm in HR and organizational behavior. It's kind of expected for us to speak about terms like servant leadership and so on. You are in CX and you've led great teams all over. I'll probably answer you after, but I'm curious, how did you land there? How do you find it? Do you find that if you lead in the trenches with your team, do people generally take advantage? Do they go the extra mile? How do you find it? I'm very curious.
So most people are great people. You're going to find the minority, but by far the minority, who may want to take advantage of that situation. Like you said, you can't treat everybody the same. Most people have huge respect. If you can pick up the call and ask somebody for money that they don't have, teach them how to handle a difficult customer. When a client is swearing at them, to be able to say, let me take the call. And I speak to the client and I say, we're not going to treat our colleagues this way. We need respect. Where if there's an urgent deadline and we're working right throughout the night, I'm going to be there working with you throughout the night, because that's how we're going to get there together. And I know if I'm ill, my team is going to be there backing me all the way, making sure that we achieve what we need to be. When I go on holiday, I don't have to worry that things aren't going to be right. And they don't have to worry when they go on holiday, because we all are working in that way. And we've been put on this earth to serve, whether it is to serve our parents or to serve our children or our spouses or the people we work with or we work for, or the clients who give us the money that we need to survive. We're born to serve. That is our purpose. And I get to serve people, and that's where I've landed. And through some very difficult times, I find that that's humbled me and my team the most.
So good. No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because I find generally that people push back a lot on at least the label of servant leadership, but it's just a misunderstanding of what it is. It's a misunderstanding of some of the things that have driven somebody. So sometimes people, one of the things that drove them to get to the levels they got to as leaders is definitely not to go there to serve. So you find that they were driven by I'll have the status, I'll have the power, I'll have the office, all those things that we call objective success. Psychologists often differentiate between what we call objective success and substantive career success. And for me, I find that titles, power, status, those are the things that, according to society, when you achieve them, you're successful. Subjective career success is, do I feel fulfilled? Do I feel successful? And the ideas and the core of servant leadership, those are the things that they help us with, where when you go to bed at night, you feel fulfilled because you have served somebody else. You have, and it's not this soft, cuddly thing. It's about, as I serve others, they also serve me. We then get the results that we want. So I think for many people, there is that initial rejection with the concept. But I think when you explain what it is, people open up, because generally speaking, we have, especially there's a certain age where you start having these existential questions. What am I here? What am I up to? And if you are a leader and you're grappling with your statement, I think those questions, for me, balancing that objective and subjective career success is very useful. And one of the ways to do it is to serve others, as we keep saying.
And that's part of the giving. That is the fulfillment that you get at the end of the day. Yeah. Now, I can tell you, when I started off my career, that was certainly not my leadership style. Yes, yeah. And that has changed as I've matured and as I've seen things work and I've seen things don't work. But I loved how you put together that you do it with care and with candor. We speak a lot in our XMY's circle of friends around compassion, which is taking empathy and adding action, because it's one thing to be empathetic and really understand where you come from. But if we don't do anything about it, then it stays empathetic. Yeah. And so we want to serve with compassion, where we actually do make a difference and you walk away feeling different after the interaction. And I sense that's something that's definitely within you, and how you approach your lectures at university, and certainly how you address your keynotes as well.
I'm learning so much in this conversation. I first of all, the idea of compassion being both empathy and action resonates so deeply. People who study empathy, they've often talked about the fact that in leadership, what is really helpful is that kind of empathy where there's compassion plus there's compassion which includes action. I'm an empath by nature, and so I've battled with this so much because I learned that there's a difference between affective and cognitive empathy, which was so helpful for me. One of the things that really affected me in the past is because I'm a feeler, I'm an empath. I used to take on a lot of people's stuff, and people talk to you, they come to you, and you have empathy, but the empathy that is not coupled with action. And so you take everything, until I remember I was having a conversation with a coach friend, and they said to me, I think now you have compassion fatigue, because all of a sudden you don't care. All of a sudden you're unmoved by anything. And it's true. I had reached that level, because I think when you have that kind of empathy without the action, you can get so exhausted, because just listening to stories after stories without that push to get action, it can be exhausted. So I've learned as well now to have that empathy that is driven with a lot of actions, and also because we're living in a world where there are some people who have absolutely no problem to take forever,
True story.
So if you have this open-ended empathy, you're also going to get exhausted. And so as much as we become others-centered, we also have to take care of self and understand what are your own limits, and understand that even if you are listening to people, nudging them towards action is so, so useful.
That's amazing. I think our time is long past, but I could literally sit here and talk to you for days, Siphiwe. Thank you for all the wonderful nuggets and lessons you've left us with. And I really hope that our listeners out there are going to connect as much as we have and take away something that is going to change the way you show up the very next moment, the very next day. Thank you for joining us, and to our listeners, take care, and we'll see you soon again.
Thank you, Debi.
Thank you for tuning in to the XMGage podcast. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to leave a comment, share your insights, or start a conversation. If you found value in today's episode, we kindly ask that you give us a follow on our social media platforms for more CX content, and subscribe to the podcast below so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep creating exceptional experiences, one interaction at a time.
Leaders talk, we learn, we grow. Innovation's got that glow. To write in, dive in deep. Insights here are yours to keep. CX dreams shining bright, bringing heart, mind, and light. Every interaction aligned just right. Oh, 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 XMGage. Turn the page, ignite the stage. Learn, grow, feel the spark. Make every moment leave a mark. Make every interaction